What's up, guys, and welcome back to another episode of Coach Sean's Kitchen. Today, we're going to be doing some low-carb meatballs, but we're not going to sacrifice any of that flavor. These meatballs are going to be so juicy, so tender, and I'm going to show you how you can cook them on your Traeger grill out back. You're not going to want to miss it. This is Coach Sean's Kitchen. So to make these meatballs, I'm gonna use 2 cuts of meat today. I'm gonna use some ground beef and some ground pork. And since I have a meat grinder, I'm gonna grind it on my own. Now, if you guys don't have a meat grinder, that's totally fine. You can buy the pre-ground cuts at the store. But if you've never ground your own meat, it adds a whole nother dimension of flavor that you didn't even know existed. So the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cube up my top round so that it fits into my meat grinder. So once that's done, I'm gonna use my pork shoulder next, and I only need about a pound, maybe a pound and a half of pork shoulder. So I'm just gonna trim off what I need, and I'm gonna leave the rest for another day that I can smoke it. So once I've got all of my meat cubed up, I'm gonna put it into the freezer. The trick with grinding your own meat is everything needs to be ice cold. Your meat needs to be ice cold, your equipment needs to be ice cold. A great rule of thumb when grinding meat is if your fingers aren't a little bit numb and tingly from handling everything, then you're probably gonna gunk up your machine because it's gonna heat up, that fat's gonna render, and it's gonna clog your whole meat grinder. So one of the things I look for when I'm grinding my meat is a great striation between the fat and the meat. You can see that it's very segmented. It means that we're not rendering that fat down. We got a good grind going, and that fat's gonna be incorporated through the entire product. So to make our meatballs, the recipe couldn't be more straightforward. We're gonna throw everything in a bowl, mix it up, form our meatballs, and we're gonna cook them. So into the bowl, I'm gonna add my ground beef and my ground pork. The next thing I'm gonna add is some freshly grated Parmigiano-Reggiano cheese. Yes, fresh grinding your cheese makes a huge difference. The next thing we're gonna add is a package of frozen spinach that we thawed and drained. Next, we'll add some spices. Here, I've got some thyme and some oregano. The next 2 ingredients we're gonna add are gonna help bind everything together. So since these are low-carb meatballs, instead of adding breadcrumbs, we're gonna add some almond flour. After that, we're gonna add 1 whole egg. We're gonna hit it with a little bit more seasoning. Here, I've got some garlic powder and some parsley. And then we're gonna also throw in some red pepper flakes just for a little bit of heat. So once you got everything added to the bowl, the best way to mix this is with your hand. So I'm gonna go ahead and glove up, and I'm gonna start incorporating all of the ingredients together. So the number 1 rule when making meatballs is you don't wanna overwork your meat. You don't wanna be digging your hand in there, squeezing it hard, making a paste. You wanna be very gentle and delicate with the meat. So when I'm incorporating it, I'm loosely just tossing it together, just making sure that everything is evenly distributed. So when forming my meatballs, I shoot for a 1.5 ounce meatball, and yes, I use a scale. So once I've got it measured out, I'm gonna start forming the meatball in my hand. Once again, being very delicate with it. I'm just loosely forming it, bringing it together. I'm not squeezing it, and I'm not overworking it. So once I've got all my meatballs formed, I'm gonna head out to my Traeger to cook these. So one of my favorite ways to use my Traeger grill is as a smoke oven. So I can cook things at 350, 375, 400, 450, and since it uses those wood pellets, it just imparts a little bit of that woody, smoky flavor to whatever's cooking in there. If you don't have a Traeger, you can still do this exact recipe in the oven. We're still gonna be cooking at 375 for about 20 to 25 minutes or until the meatballs temp at 155. So let's talk about how these meatballs came out. The outside, golden brown, lightly smoky. The inside was so juicy and so flavorful. And since we added that spinach in there, we basically got a serving of vegetables as well. How do we like to eat these? You can put them in pasta sauce and create some spaghetti and meatballs. You can put them on a hoagie roll with some mozzarella, and you've got a great meatball hero sandwich. Or my favorite way to eat them is straight up. Just a little dollop of homemade mayonnaise, and I could eat these meatballs all day. Let me know in the comments how you guys plan to eat your meatballs. So I hope this episode gives you the confidence to try low-carb meatballs. And if you do, let me know in the comments how it went. I want to thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of Coach Sean's Kitchen. And as always, guys, enjoy.